Yeah, what's up? What's up? You Can't Play Boxing Podcast, episode 49. Yeah, episode 49. So, episode 50 coming up. What's up, y'all? Hopefully, everybody had a good last week. There's a lot of stuff going on. In the last week. We're gonna talk about a lot this episode. I mean, we're gonna get into the Mayweather versus Logan Paul fight coming up in a few weeks. Joshua and Tyson Fury negotiations. Man, the Felix Verdejo. Yeah. I mean, that situation, that was crazy. Of course, Joseph Parker and Derek Chisora fighting this past weekend. We had Andy Ruiz and Chris Areola too. Dimitri Bivol was fighting, so there's a lot of stuff going on. So before we get into all that, though, first of all, you can check us out on our social Instagram. You Can't Play Boxing. That's UCANTPLAYBOXING. And of course, our website Can't Play Boxing. And of course, if you're listening to this, you can listen to us on every podcast platform like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all of them. So just make sure you check us out every Mondays for You Can't Play Boxing Podcast. So before we get into that, we're going to talk about a little bit of the bullshit. Like I said, it's a boxing and bullshit podcast. So on some of the bullshit, this past week, something interesting kind of caught my eye. DJ Khaled, he came out with his latest album. And I ain't going to talk about the album because, I ain't going to talk about the album. But I am going to talk about the song that kind of caught my eye, which was like the lead, I guess, single off the album. Was Jay-Z and Nas, you know what I'm saying? They reconnected. It's been a while since there's been a Jay-Z and Nas collaboration. We've only had 3 in the past. They did it on Ludacris' album. I Do It for Hip Hop. I think that was like maybe 12 years ago. Then, of course, on American Gangster, they connected with Success off that album, and that was 14 years ago. And of course, the first time they got on a track together was Black Republicans, which was on the Hip Hop Is Dead album that came out in 2006, I think. So about 15 years ago. Yeah. So it's been a while. It's been over a decade since they actually got on the track and collaborated. And so it was interesting to hear this one. Overall, I kind of like this song. It features James Fauntleroy. Yeah. But I think Beyonce was on the original hook. He's singing the hook on it, but I think Beyonce was originally singing the hook, from what I understand. And Nas starts off the verse, talking big money stuff, talking about just Coinbase IPO, venture capitalists, talking about just talking about that big money talk. And then Hov comes in, talking about his business deals too. So it's funny, man, if you grew up listening to Nas and Jay-Z, it's funny to kind of think about this stage of their lives where they talking about investments and things of that nature, and angel investing and Silicon Valley. And, I'm out here in the Valley, and I actually work in the Valley, actually. But it's funny to hear that, as a grown man, from seeing, listening to him back in the 90s and how everything kind of parallel to where they at right now. But overall, yeah, I definitely dig the song. Sorry Not Sorry, so you can definitely check it out on all your streaming platforms. It's on Apple Music, Spotify, I'm tripping right now, Spotify. So yeah, check it out. DJ Khaled album, Khaled. And check out that Nas and Jay-Z song. So the next thing we'll talk about this Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul exhibition. Yo, I have no problem with people getting their money for sure. And if the public's gonna pay for it, I'm all for it, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, so just to kind of step back, the fight is gonna be June 6th in Miami, Florida at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. Also on the undercard was just announced today, Chad Ochocinco Johnson, who played for the Cincinnati Bengals back in the day, NFL player. He is also going to be on the undercard. He will be facing a opponent to be determined. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm interested in seeing how Chad goes. If you are a fan of the I Am Athlete podcast with him and Brandon Marshall and Fred Taylor and Shannon Crowder, yeah. If you're a fan of the podcast, which I am a fan of the podcast, they always talk shit about, at first Brandon Marshall was going to try to get in the ring. He said he could beat Deontay Wilder, but now, which is ludicrous. But now Chad Ochocinco, he's going to try his hand in the ring against an opponent to be determined. My understanding is that Chad has been training. He uses boxing training as part of his regimen, even in the NFL. So he's not like new to boxing. However, training and actually fighting is two different things. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be interesting to see, number one, who he fights, and then number two, how he responds to an actual fight. That's going to be interesting. But as far as this Mayweather and Logan Paul, number one, Logan Paul has only fought one time, and he lost a split decision to KSI, who's another YouTube guy. So, you got a guy who's undefeated in Mayweather, 50-0 professional fights, fighting against a YouTube guy. Again, I want people to make that money, but that's all I want to say about that. 50-0 versus 0-1. I don't care how old Floyd is. You be the judge on what you expect out of that. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to the whole Mayweather promotions, everybody putting on. It's going to be on Showtime pay-per-view. I don't know how much they're going to charge for this pay-per-view. Will I pay for it? Not sure. I would much rather make it a trip to Miami versus me actually paying for it. But we shall see. So, that fight is coming up on June the 6th. The next thing we're going to talk about, speaking of fights that are being negotiated, are in the midst of being negotiated. Every week we've been talking about this whole Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury fight. We've been talking about, okay, Tyson Fury is getting close. They're going to have $150 million. Oh, the site fee is going to be this. It's going to be in Saudi Arabia. Bob Arum said, man, fuck all that shit. This shit ain't happening. It's dead in the water. Now, if you a fight fan, if you know the fight business and you know how Bob Arum operates, Bob Arum typically goes to the media to get messages that he wants out to the other promoters to put pressure on them. So reading in between the lines, it seems though they keep going back and forth with negotiations. The Saudis, they want a certain thing. Eddie Hearn wants a certain thing. Bob Arum and his lawyers want a certain thing. So when Bob Arum, I don't think is going the way that he wants it. So, okay, I go to the media and tell him, you know what? This fight is dead. It's not happening. I believe that's bullshit. It's too much money on the line. You don't get this far to the basically the 10-yard line and punt unless you absolutely have to when you got $100+ million waiting on you, especially when coronavirus and the pandemic hasn't afforded a lot of people these big ass gates and big ass, live purses. So I would expect this fight to probably be finalized this month sometime. I think this is just, like I said, Bob Arum's way to kind of try to put some heat on Eddie Hearn and the Saudis and everybody because, he's been in the business a long time. He hadn't been a long time promoter by being dumb. So he knows who to call when he wants a message out. He knows what to say when he wants something done. So Bob Arum is a smart guy, and he knows what he's doing. Speaking of Bob Arum and Top Rank, some unfortunate news we're going to talk about. One of their fighters, Felix Verdejo. If you don't know him, he was a top 10 lightweight fighter. You know what I'm saying? Puerto Rican fighter. Felix Verdejo is accused of killing a 27-year-old woman who was believed to be his girlfriend, Keisha Rodriguez, in Puerto Rico. Felix Verdejo is married, which some believe could be the motive for this, if it's true. Verdejo is charged with kidnapping and carjacking, resulting in the death of Rodriguez, and with intentionally killing an unborn child. I don't like to hear things about this. I don't like to hear shit like this, you know what I'm saying? I got 2 daughters myself. I got a lot of sisters, both sisters, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know the circumstances behind it. I'm not gonna say I do, but all I know is somebody's passed away, and it looks like something could have been avoided, So the FBI was involved. It happened in Puerto Rico. Verdejo, he was in the 2012 Olympics, lightweight division. He was on a lot of the ESPN cards that they had, for Top Rank. So sorry to end the segment on a somber note. But prayers up to Miss Rodriguez and her family. So like I said, ending the segment on a somber note. But when we come back, we're going to recap all the fights that happened this past weekend, which means we're going to recap Chisora versus Parker. Dimitri Bivol came back on that same card. Also, Andy Ruiz versus Chris Areola. And we also going to preview the Canelo versus BJ Saunders fight, which happens this weekend. So stay tuned. Got a couple commercials. Y'all support my sponsors too, y'all. They really tapping in with us. So if you support me and you support this podcast by listening to it, we got some, promo codes and stuff. So support them sponsors, And it's only gonna be like a minute or two. We'll be right back. Shouts out to our sponsors. Luxury Apex is sponsoring this segment. LuxuryApex.com is where you can find the most premium colognes and fragrances for women and perfumes for women for great prices. Luxury Apex has premium colognes and perfumes from Chanel, from Tom Ford, also from Dior. And just for you listening to our podcast, You Can't Play Boxing, they got a special promo code for our listeners. If you type in the code Can't Play Boxing 25, you get 25% off from any item on the site. Luxury Apex includes free shipping, so give them a shout, man. LuxuryApex.com. Premium fragrances, top-notch designers. Let them know that you Can't Play Boxing sent you over there. Again, promo code is Can't Play Boxing 25. What's up? It's that time of the show where we kind of give a shout out to our sponsors. The sponsor today is Anchor. Anchor is everything you need to create your own podcast. You can use Anchor to distribute your show. They'll kind of get it out for you. And all you have to do is do it from your cell phone or your microphone, however you want to do it. But if you want to get your voice out there, if you want to talk to the people, there's no better place to do it than Anchor. So download the app, Anchor, or go to their website, anchor.com. It'll distribute your podcast on all platforms. So again, Anchor. Yeah. You Can't Play Boxing podcast, episode 49. Back with this next segment. Yo, this past weekend we had a lot of good fights, a lot of good action-packed fights. So we're going to dive into them real quick. Started off, we had Dimitri Bivol, light heavyweight king, one of the top ones in light heavyweight. Him and Peter Biev, hopefully they'll fight. But Dimitri Bivol, he had a fight. He was defending his WBA light heavyweight title against Craig Richards, who is out of London, England. Shout out to Craig Richards. I didn't know too much about Craig Richards, but I got to know him this fight. Craig Richards, 6'1", 31 years old. He really did. I like him. You know what I mean? He showed heart in this fight. I ended up having him losing 116 and 112, but he went head up with Bivol. And the thing I like about Craig Richards is that you can tell that Bivol had all the skills more than Craig Richards, and Craig Richards was limited to a certain extent, but he was smart when he was in that ring. You know what I mean? He's technically sound, had a good little jab. Bivol would try to let his nuts hang a little bit and try to push him back. But that, and some fighters, when a more skilled world title, world champion let their nuts hang and kind of outclasses them, some fighters will go in a shell. Craig Richards didn't do that. You know what I'm saying? And he stuck in there, put his head down, worked with what he had, and he won a few rounds on my scorecard. Some fighters would have definitely got knocked out or threw in the towel or whatever, but I really want to give a shout out to Craig Richards, you know what I'm saying? So even though Bivol won, and I want to give a shout out to Bivol because he is who we know he is, I really want to see him fight Better Biev for a unification fight. And Bivol is small enough, bro. I think he can make 168 and fight Canelo, and that would be a good fight too. Yeah, that was the first fight on the card. Next fight we had on the zone card that's notable that I want to talk about is Derek Chisora versus my man David Parker. You know what I'm saying? First round, heavyweight fight, first 10 seconds. Chisora, which is he's known for having that power. And when I gave my prediction on a fight, I said I could see Chisora having a power, but Parker having enough skill to win. And it kind of played out the way I thought it was going to play out, but I didn't expect Chisora to knock Parker out in the first, not knock him out, but knock him down in the first 10 seconds. So, first 10 seconds, like I said, Chisora knocked Parker down. Parker had to come back and stand on his own too. First few rounds, definitely, I gave Chisora. He started off fast. But in the second half of the fight, Parker started to get in his groove, started to get a little range. Chisora does get gassed. And he got gassed at the end of this fight. And really, I think it's kind of an indictment on Parker. That's why I'm not really... He won on my card. I had him winning 114, 113. But Chisora was so gassed, bro. Like, if Parker had a little bit more oomph, he could have probably got him out of there. That's why Parker, in my estimation, don't get me wrong, he's a world-class fighter. But, yeah, he'll always be on that second level, you know what I mean? Like, he's on that second level as far as heavyweights go. You got, like, the Deontay's, the Anthony Joshua's, the Tyson Fury's, probably the Usyks, you know what I'm saying? And the Ruiz and the Ortiz, then you got kind of the level with Parker, Povetkin, what's my guy, the British guy just beat Povetkin a minute ago. Slipping my mind, but you got those guys on the second level, So it was a close fight, but I had to fight. I had Joseph Parker winning the fight 114, 113. So that kind of wrapped up the zone card. Then we went to StubHub, you know what I'm saying? And on Fox pay-per-view, you had the Chris Areola versus Andy Ruiz Jr. On the undercard, you had Erislandy Lara. He got a knockout, which is kind of questionable. It's the first time I seen somebody actually get knocked out and have their legs shaking like they had a seizure off of a shoulder punch. You know what I'm saying? Lara landed a shoulder punch against his opponent and got a knockout off of that. And a lot of people are like, did you just take a dive and get your money real quick? But, whatever. So that was the ending of that fight. And the main event, of course, we had Andy Ruiz versus Chris Areola. This was an interesting fight, bro. Andy Ruiz, of course, this is his first fight since he fought Anthony Joshua about 17 months ago. So that was ring rust. Chris Areola, he hadn't fought in 2 years himself too, but both of them came into real good shape. Anthony Ruiz was like 30 pounds lighter than his last fight. Chris Areola was like the lightest he's ever been, I think, in a while. And it was a good fight. Areola, he knocked down Andy Ruiz in the second round. They were throwing bombs at each other in the third round, and Areola rocked him again in the third round. Fourth round, Andy Ruiz had a better round. Of course, he has a new trainer, which is Mr. Reynoso, who trains Canelo. And it was a good back and around the second half of the fight. Andy Ruiz started to get his feet under him. And, I had Andy Ruiz winning the fight 115, 112. Very interesting as far as, on one hand, I think Andy Ruiz needed this fight to kind of knock off the rust. But do I think he can mess with Deontay Wilder? I don't think so. I think he's a good fighter, but I think he's, top 10 heavyweight, not a top 5 heavyweight. But, there's talk that he may face Deontay Wilder. And Chris Areola, of course, he was upset that he lost the fight, and he thought he got robbed. I don't think it was a robbery. I think also in the fight happened, Chris Areola, he hurt his shoulder. I think he did that before in another fight. And so I can understand the frustration because he really put time in. You could tell he put time in his preparation. And that's not something that Areola typically has always been accustomed to doing. But, he came up short. And, he's 40 years old, so he may be close to hanging it up. But shout out to Chris Areola, though. So the big fight this weekend, we got Canelo coming back. He's going to fight Billy Joe Saunders in AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, home of the Cowboys, on DAZN. Big fight. I'm not going to lie. It's a big fight. Canelo, of course, if you don't know, Canelo is 55-1, am I right? Yeah, 55-1 with 2 draws. 1 draw to Triple G, 1 loss to Floyd Mayweather. Canelo is 30 years old. And this is going to be for the WBC super middle title, WBA super middleweight title, and the WBO super middleweight title. So it's the unification fight. Billy Joe Saunders, who he's fighting, is undefeated, 30-0, 31 years old, so 1 year older than Canelo. Billy Joe Saunders, of course, is from United Kingdom. I guess his biggest wins, you would say he beat Martin Murray last year in Wembley Arena, but Martin Murray had some losses at that time. Beat David Lemieux, and that was a unanimous decision too back in 2017. And he beat Andy Lee. He had a couple good wins. Of course, he beat Chris Eubank. I guess is his biggest win back in 2014. So Billy Joe Saunders, very good technical fighter, has footwork, never lost. So anytime you're facing a guy who's been undefeated, he hasn't been trained to lose yet. And he's a champion, So with this fight, I gave you all of Billy Joe Saunders' attributes that are favorable to him. The only thing about it is that everything Billy Joe Saunders is good at, Canelo can do himself, or he's been in there with guys who do it better than what Billy Joe Saunders does it. You know what I'm saying? Like, Canelo has pretty good feet himself right now. Canelo's defense is good right now. Canelo is very good technically. He has power. He's been in there with technical fighters who was sound, like Triple G. Been in there with Lara. Been in there with Floyd Mayweather. Been in there with Cotto. You know what I'm saying? So there's nothing that Billy Joe Saunders is going to show Canelo that he has. Been in there with Danny Jacobs. There's not Kovalev. There's nothing that Billy Joe Saunders is going to show Canelo that he hasn't seen. There's no level that Billy Joe Saunders has that Canelo hasn't already faced and was able to handle or learn from. So my prediction for this fight, I think Canelo will win by unanimous decision. I see him winning maybe 117, 111, maybe 116, 112. I think Billy Joe Saunders would make a good accounting for himself, but he's not on the level that Canelo is on. That's not a bad thing. I mean, Canelo is probably the best pound for pound fighter in the world right now. There's only one of those, you know what I'm saying? There's only 3, 4, 5 that can be in discussion to be that, So Billy Joe Saunders is a good fighter. Just not on Canelo's level. But like I always say, bruh, that's why they fight. I can say it's gonna go one way, But certain things, sometimes a fighter just got to show me. You know what I'm saying? So it's possible. As long as you're in the ring with another man, it's possible for you to show what you got. So, again, that fight is going to be in Dallas at the AT&T Stadium on the Zone. And I think they're expecting like a capacity crowd. So, you know, we shall see how that goes. Excuse me. But my prediction is that I think Canelo's going to win this one. And, you know, we'll have a good fight to talk about next week. So what we're going to do, we're going to wrap up this episode. Again, this is episode 49. Next week is going to be episode 50. And I appreciate everybody for rocking with us. Listenership is going up, till it's stuck. You feel me? Again, check us out on our socials, which is You Can't Play Boxing. That's UCANTPLAYBOXING. Website Can't Play Boxing. Of course, if you're listening to us, check us out on all your socials, on all your podcast platforms. You know, listen, rate, subscribe. And if you want to email us, you can't play boxing at gmail.com. So I appreciate everybody, all the support. Until next time, y'all, till next week. Peace.